Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1081A, and today's date is September 21st, 2016, and the title of the episode is Something is Brewing, and it might be the catalyst that ignites the economic collapse. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, every day that we look at the economy, it continually gets worse and worse. And, of course, the corporate media, the U.S. government, the central banks, they're still out there trying to convince the world, the people of the United States, that everything is fine here in the United States. There's absolutely nothing wrong. The economy is chugging along. It's perfect. And yes, we're going to be doing interest rate hikes very, very soon. Now, we know if the Fed moves ahead with an interest rate hike, we know this is a signal letting us know that they're prepared to take this economy down. Think about it. The rest of the world is in negative interest rates, but the United States is preparing to raise rates. And we know what happened last time they raised rates. Things started to rapidly fall apart. And when they do it for a second time, it's going to be a lot worse. But of course, it's not going to happen right away. It might take 2 or 3 months. And they're prepared for this. They're getting ready for this. But when we look at this economy, we see that things are rapidly deteriorating very, very quickly. We see that Americans, 34% of Americans today have $0 in their savings. Now, Americans, they're dipping into their savings, if they have any, even more than they did last year. And this is coming from a new survey. Nearly 70% of Americans report having less than $1,000 in savings, and the pattern really touches all age groups. And we can see a lot of people are living on credit. A lot of people are just getting by. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and this is why they have to dip into their savings. This is why they have to live on credit, because they cannot find those same high-paying jobs. And we can see the corporate media is out there, the Fed is out there, the U.S. government is out there, and they're giving a lot of statistical information they're giving us a lot of statistical information. And we know that they manipulate the information. They can drop people off the workforce. They can revise the numbers. They can recalculate different numbers and go back in time. And what's very interesting is the mainstream reported that there was a 5.2% gain in the real median household income in 2015. So what they're saying is the U.S. household income soared in 2015. This, of course, is the biggest gain in decades. The data represents the clearest evidence to date that the nation's long, slow, and topsy-turvy economic recovery has finally begun to deliver prosperity for many of the people out there. Now, of course, you're probably sitting there going, wait, what? What are they saying? Now, what we are actually seeing is that the U.S. government decided to manipulate these numbers. And we can see right now that these numbers make no sense. Because how is this completely possible when the nominal GDP increased only by 3% during 2015? Disposable personal income, again in nominal terms, grew by just 3.7%. The fact is, the median income can grow nearly twice as fast as aggregate income only if gains in the middle and bottom of the income ladder grew far faster than the total income pie. That is, if earnings of the average worker rose faster than the big bucks earned by like bankers and athletes, lawyers, business executives, that would make sense, but it didn't happen. Of course, the Census Bureau own report proves it. The median nominal earnings of full-time male workers grew by just 1.6% in 2015. Full-time female workers grew by 2.8%. That's not 5.7% growth. What they did is they went back to 2014 and they shot the data up to make it look like the entire country is doing much better. And of course, most likely they did this for the election. So they went back in time and they manipulated the data once again. And we can see right now they do this very often. And the CEO of Gallup was looking at the data for the recovery, and he's saying, well, there really is no recovery. It is a lie. The percentage of Americans who say they are in the middle or upper class right now, well, that has fallen by 10% points from 61% between 2008 and 2008 to 51% today. So 10% of 250 million adults in the U.S. is 25 million people whose economic lives have crashed. And what is missing is that these 25 million people are invisible in the reported unemployment figures, which they show us unemployment is at 4.9%. The sudden loss of household income can cause a crash of self-esteem and dignity, leading to an environment of desperation that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. And this is exactly what is happening out in the country today. People who are still looking for work, they become depressed. They feel like there is no work out there. Many people just can't deal with it. And I've seen it when people have gotten laid off. They go into hiding. They get very upset. And we can see right now that most of what the government, the BLS, what they're telling us, it's all lies. I mean, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the percentage of total U.S. adult population that has a full-time job has been hovering around 48% since 2010. This is the lowest full-time employment level since 1983. So, think about this for a second. We're back to 1983 levels. What kind of recovery is this when the population is much larger than it was in 1983? The number of publicly listed companies trading on the U.S. exchanges has been cut almost in half in the past 20 years, from about 7,300 to 3,700. Why? Because they can't grow organically. They can't get new business. They can't bring in revenue. They can't keep their existing customers. And this is why corporations are having a major problem today. New business startups are at historical lows. Americans have stopped starting small businesses. And the businesses that do start are growing at historically slow rates. Free enterprise is in free fall. How possibly are we in a recovery? Because small business makes up most of the employment today. Well, it's not true. They're lying to us once again. When we look at the Cass Freight Index for August, we see that trucking, rail traffic, it is down by 1.1% from a year ago. This is the worst since August of 2010. This is the 18th month in a row that we've seen these declines. Overall shipment volumes, well, they're very weak. And the situation that we're looking at is deteriorating very, very quickly. The Association of American Railroads, well, they're saying that oil and coal and other commodities fell by 6.6% in August from a year ago. And intermodal traffic, containers and trailers, fell by 4.8%. So we can see right now that when we're looking at all the different economic indicators, we see that the system, it's collapsing. The system is not improving. Now, something very interesting is happening right now. The US dollar just staged its second biggest single-day rally of the year on Friday. The only other day which the US dollar rallied more was on the BREXIT, when the entire global currency system pretty much came unhinged. Now, this kind of move is a clear signal that maybe something major is underway behind the scenes. And that something might be a European bank crisis. Remember, the EU banking system is 3 times the size of the US, and they're leveraged 26 to 1. Lehman was leveraged 30 to 1 when it collapsed. And when the EU banking system collapses, it will be a domino effect, and it will eventually hit the United States. We saw this back in the Great Depression. Europe was horrific. Through the 20s and into the late 20s, Europe was reeling. The United States was saying, "Oh, it's the good times. Look, nothing can ever go bad. The stock market is at all-time highs. Nothing can ever go wrong." Everyone was partying. Everyone thought everything was great. And then, boom, snap of a finger, everything came to a screeching halt. Here we are in 2016. Same thing. Everyone is out there thinking everything is great. The corporate media, the US government, the central banks, telling you how great it is. We're continually recovering. Things are looking up. And then with the snap of a finger, boom, everything comes tumbling down. We saw it in 2008. All the way up to that point, they told us everything was contained, fine, the economy is doing well. Go out and spend, everybody. We're seeing the same exact signs. Now, a former financial advisor and a prominent Saudi economist said that Saudi Arabia, well, they're on the verge of collapse. And we know right now that Saudi Arabia, they're in a war with Yemen, which Yemen never attacked them. Saudi Arabia has been pumping oil, keeping the price very low. We have a glut of oil on the market right now. We know that this is hooked to many different agendas. One, to put pressure on Russia, didn't work. The other is to keep the oil prices very low so that people can go out and spend and corporations can stay profitable. Remember, all the deliveries, airlines, production, oil drives all of this. We also know that this huge amount of oil that they're continually producing allows countries to store a lot more oil than they actually really need. And the only reason you would want to do this is if there was some type of crisis. If there was maybe a war or an economic event, or maybe the dollar is no longer pegged to oil. And we can see that the clock is ticking down. The system is coming unhinged. And we can see there are catalysts out there that will set off this economic collapse. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.